In 2019, Kanye West would release a full-on gospel album in Jesus is King, a project that left most fans feeling rather underwhelmed. While an enjoyable listen, the album simply failed to capture the energy that was seen at Ye's Sunday service events. Additionally, with the album being the replacement of Ye's 2018 scrapped project Yandhi, it simply just didn't live up to the hype. It wasn't that, oh, Kanye isn't swearing anymore, or in general, people having a dislike for the fact that Ye was creating non-secular music. It was simply that this album lacked the certain substance held by every Kanye project preceding it. Shortly after the album's release in October of 2019, Kanye would announce that he would be working on a sequel to the project titled Jesus is King 2, with the record being produced by Dr. Dre. Essentially, the sequel was set to be a remix of sorts of the first album, with Dre handling production and changing up the tracks that originally made up the original track list. You also had the prospect of some new tracks appearing on this sequel, which left a lot of fans who had heard leaks from the Jesus is King era pretty damn excited, as they expected Jesus is King 2 to be everything they wanted that original record to be. But of course, like many projects announced by Ye in the past, Jesus is King 2 would never be officially released. 3 years after the collaboration was first teased, the album would leak in full in September of 2023, and we now officially know what Dre's vision was for this project. So today, we take a closer look at Kanye and Dr. Dre's unreleased collab album, and see what could have been with Jesus is King 2. Our story begins in October of 2019, as Ye drops a full-on gospel album titled Jesus is King, receiving mixed reviews and reactions from fans. For starters, as I talked about in the intro here, people were expecting Yandhi. While it was clear Kanye had kind of left the concept of Yandhi in the past once he started having Sunday service events, fans were still attached to those snippets they had heard originally hyping up the record, like Hurricane, and this project was simply lacking the tracks that they were really anticipating to release. Also, you have some tracks that were supposed to be on Yandhi that were altered to be more fitting to the religious vibes of this Jesus is King album, which many fans saw as a downgrade. However, most fans would understand that Yandhi was left in the past, as Kanye would continuously hold these Sunday service events in the lead up to this record dropping. The first event held by Ye marked his return to the public post-Yandhi, as he hosted a Sunday service event at Coachella 2019. These shows were full of energy. From the choir's powerful performances to Kanye just having a good time and vibing, playing the keys, these events really had a strong aura of healing around them. And if you attended these at the time, you know what I'm talking about, you could feel it. Most fans, like I said, they're pretty disappointed that Yandhi was going to be left in the past in return for a religious Ye record, but as they started to see more and more clips of these shows online, fans became excited at the prospect of an album that would hopefully capture the energy created at these Sunday service events. However, Jesus is King simply failed to do that. Despite having various high points, and in hindsight being a pretty enjoyable listen, at least in my opinion, the album left most fans simply wanting more from the project, especially after they were left high and dry with Yandhi. Just a month after the project released, Ye would randomly tweet out, "Ye and Dre, Jesus is King Part 2 coming soon," with a picture of him and Dr. Dre in the studio. With the reception of Jesus is King being relatively mixed, as well as the fact that a lot of people saw the project as missed potential, people began to get pretty excited at the idea of a part 2 of this record, as well as the fact that we have never heard an official collab between Dr. Dre and Kanye. But just as people are starting to really get talking, like, what could this collab sound like? You know, the excitement's going up. Kanye wouldn't mention this collab for over 7 months. We can assume that this is where the duo went to work, as the project was worked on around the same time that Kanye began work on his planned solo album in 2020 titled God's Country. But like I said, this is a 7-month dry period where Kanye just dropped this bombshell like, hey, me and Dr. Dre are working on a collab, and then it's complete radio silence for over half a year. But in this time, some leaks would shed some light on what this project was potentially going to be, as we'd receive access to some tracks like LA Monster and Up From the Ashes, as well as a few track lists actually leaking for this project. But Ye would finally mention the album once again, like I said, about 7 months after the first teaser, during his 2020 Worst Day Ever campaign. In June of 2020, Kanye would break his apparent radio silence, announcing many things, from a Kids See Ghosts cartoon, as well as a new single titled Wash Us in the Blood. But among the many things announced by Kanye on this date, Jesus is King Dr. Dre version would be included on the list. That same day, Kanye would drop another tweet talking about the project, joking about spilling some orange juice. But in that tweet, the way in which Kanye speaks about the Collab album, it makes it seem as if he's saying that the project is finished. About a week after that initial set of tweets, Snoop Dogg would post a video online of him in the studio with Ye and Dr. Dre, with fans then assuming that he would have a feature on the record. We now know, of course, with hindsight, that he was working on the track titled This Is the Glory that was originally planned for Donda, not the Collab album, but we'll talk about it in a little bit. But from here, Ye's 2020 would get pretty damn wild, as he not only switched directions for his solo album from God's Country to Donda, but also decided last minute to run for president, hosting a disastrous campaign rally in South Carolina. Among the chaos, Ye would tweet out at Eminem, thanking him for his verse on a remix of Use This Gospel. This would be the very last time that Kanye would speak on Jesus is King Part 2 publicly. Associate of Ye, Dem Joints, would be asked about the progress of the Collab album in late 2020, where he would basically confirm that it was scrapped. After being asked about the record, Dem Joints would say, "I highly doubt it'll be released at this point. I don't think it's hitting the streets. I think Kanye is excited about different things right now. I think he might be working on something else." While the album never officially released, we would hear some of the tracks that were going to be on the collab legally as the years have went on. The previously mentioned song This Is the Glory, featuring Snoop Dogg and produced by Dr. Dre, would be used for a Beats advertisement in the midst of the Donda rollout in summer of 2021. It's weird though, because then a lot of people were like, okay, he's probably going to put it on the album, and it never was. This Is the Glory is yet to be released officially by Kanye on streaming services. It wasn't even on the deluxe version of Donda. However, one song from Jesus is King 2 would officially be released, as the track Use This Gospel, featuring Eminem, would be put on DJ Khaled's 2022 album, God Did. While Kanye would never speak on Jesus is King 2 publicly again, he would refer to it in late 2022, as he would post on his Instagram story a picture that looked as if it could have been the cover art for this project. But it seemed as if Jesus is King 2 had simply joined the ranks of the many unreleased Kanye records, and all fans could really do was think about what could have been with the Dr. Dre and Kanye collab. That is until late 2023. On September 25th, 2023, Jesus is King 2 would leak in full during a blind group buy for $1,000, along with an early copy of Yeezus. The version of the record that we have access to is the one that was planned to drop during Kanye's summer 2020 Worst Day Ever campaign. Along with the leak, we have access to the album cover with the file dated June 26th, 2020. Likely the intended release date, which is also the same day as Kanye's tweet. This version of the album sounds 100% finished. It honestly sounds like ready to release. I'm really curious as to why Ye decided against dropping it. But now that we've covered the timeline of Jesus is King 2 and its lack of an official release to streaming services, let's get into the actual contents of this record. So the album is 10 tracks long, and the intro track combines both Every Hour and Salah. Now, an overarching review of this leak is that this album is very overproduced, and because of that, I kind of have a hard time hitting the high points on what exactly is being thrown at the listener, like what sounds are going on, etc. but I'm going to do my best. For every hour on this song, you have even more soul samples along with the original Sunday service choir vocals. And then when you get into Salah, there's added drums, there's added organ notes, which the keys sound awesome. The beat switch also has heavier drums than the original version of the track, and it goes really hard. Obviously, very much removed from the original versions of both of the songs, but it works. It really throws a lot at the listener, especially for the intro track. But that's really perfect way to describe this album. A lot of people have used the word overproduced, and I would have to agree. And even, in agreeing with that, it's not really a negative thing. It's a fun listen. It's just extremely fucking chaotic. And track 2 is LA Monster, which is an unreleased track, obviously. You got this nice strumming of an acoustic guitar right as the track opens, which then leads into the main riff, obviously, before the drums kick in. Also, by the time the hook hits for the second time, you got these very eerie organ notes being played, and it just adds so much to this track. With LA Monster, for those who haven't really looked into the song, it's talking about how people come to LA with dreams, and the atmosphere, the overall environment of the area gets them riddled in addiction. It's basically highlighting how the fame can change people and the extent in which people will go, losing their own identity to be famous. So the organ notes really help the track's atmosphere line up with the theme of the song. And then you have this ASAP Ferg feature, which is strange. Almost like his ad-libs more than the feature itself. It's a fine feature, it's just kind of like very unexpected. Kanye's lyrics are great, and I honestly prefer the original version of this leak to the Dr. Dre version we're talking about here. But needless to say, and I'm going to say this about a lot of the Dr. Dre produced tracks on here, it's fun, but it's doing a lot more than's necessary. And I get that it's a remix, and that's what a remix entails, but it's like, the original gets the point across more. They're just doing a lot more than they need to. You know what I mean? There's like this crazy fucking outro on the second track here, and then you hear these fucking seagull bird noises. Like, what is going on? Track 3 is the best song on this project in my opinion, and that is Water, featuring Ant Clemens and Victoria Boyd. There's some added synths here that are just beautiful. They sound heavenly. It's a great addition to the track. But one minor thing I really don't like, and that is Kanye's first verse when he's doing that redundant, like, Jesus, flow through us. Jesus, heal the bruises. Victoria Boyd comes in with some backing vocals and just says, Jesus, every time Kanye says Jesus, and it drives me nuts. But it's worth it, in my opinion, to stick around, listen through that section for Kanye's second verse, which is damn near outstanding. Jesus is King really marked a weird era for Kanye, where people were starting to speculate about him losing his creative edge, especially lyrically, and I think dropping this track would have potentially ended that debate, I don't know, forever. We'd get reminded with Donda in 2021 that Kanye still had that creative genius in him, but I just cannot believe you write a verse like this, you record it, you listen to it back, and somehow you don't drop it. There's some standout bars on this one. My favorite is it's still good music, no doubt. It's God music. I took one of the O's out. Amazing verse. I always really liked Water's instrumental. I always really liked the Ant Clemens vocals too, but Kanye's redundant verse on the original version almost made it a skip for me every time I listened to Jesus is King. With this Dr. Dre version of the track, it truly takes the song to another level, specifically thanks to Kanye's outstanding verse. If you haven't heard it, go check it out. But we go from my favorite track on this project to likely my least favorite, and that is the Dre version of the track, Closed on Sunday. Now, Closed on Sunday gets a lot of shit from people, just because of the ridiculous lyrics where Kanye's literally saying, closed on Sunday, you're my Chick-fil-A, you're my number one, with the lemonade. It is ridiculous. Especially when the original version of the track, the instrumental is so sinister. It's so serious, and then Kanye's talking about the Chick-fil-A menu. But I am a Closed on Sunday enjoyer. I enjoy the track. The minimalistic production on the instrumental, I think it's what makes the track great, especially when you get to the beat switch and everything. I enjoy the song. But Dr. Dre is not a man who enjoys his minimalism. And just like every song on this project, Closed on Sunday, the Dre remix version is overproduced to shit. Anderson .Paak is featured on the drums too. This is just a mess. Just really weird instrumental on this one, and it flows in after Kanye does an intro monologue. Then Kanye's getting into his verse, and again we have a problem with added backing vocals. Kanye's saying his verse here, and he's going, hold the selfies, put the gram away. And after Kanye says selfies, you got this high-pitched vocal that goes, selfies, like an echo, and it just drives me nuts. I hate this. The original version of this track worked, despite the silly Chick-fil-A lyrics, because of the minimalistic production, like I said. And then it works up to this grand moment where Kanye makes this proclamation, his devotion to God, that he will protect his family and all this stuff with the beep, beep, beep. You know what I'm talking about? I don't even know what that instrument's called. But you can't really have that moment if rather than beat drop crazy moment happens, the whole track is just beat drop crazy moments. You have nothing to lead up to and the track just becomes bleh. There's an additional new Ye verse on this track as well, but between the instrumentals and everything going on, I'm just not able to vibe with it. Low key, first miss on Jesus is King Part 2 with Dr. Dre, in my opinion. And then we get into the 5th track, On God. And this is where I run into a personal bias problem, because in my opinion, up and down, I swear that the original version of On God, it's perfect. I don't care how ridiculous that one Kanye line is on the track where he goes, "That's why I charge the prices that I charge. No, I cannot let my family starve." I don't care how ridiculous that statement is, because this Pierre Bourne beat on the original version is flawless. I love this song. Now, Dre's version is kind of like a trap beat, which is interesting. Like you've heard me say a million times in this video already, I like the Dre version, it's fun, but prefer the original. But then there's this verse from this guy Thurs. I personally am not familiar with him whatsoever. Verse is fine. And then this track has a really nice instrumental outro, but there are like 7 out of the 10 tracks on this album that have just an insane outro, and it gets to the point where it's like, well, it's not that special anymore. And then we got the track Hands On, which is another one that was very minimalistic on the original Jesus is King. Dre added in some horns, which make the track sound a lot more grandiose than the original introspective vibe of the original song. And this is another song in this project I actually really like. Kanye's verse, there's some added drums under it, and it sounds great. Travis Scott is featured on this track as well, and his verse honestly starts out very rough. The man rhymes piranhas with piranhas. But then Travis really gets going, and he starts dropping religious references. He's really opening up about his spiritual life and everything like that, delivering stuff with emphatic delivery, and it really goes well with the grand vibe of this track that the horns create. So yeah, the Dre remix version of Hands On is one of my favorite from this era, one of my favorites off this project as well. And then following that track, we have Everything We Need featuring Ant Clemens and Ty Dolla $ign. A lot of people's big critique on Jesus is King 2, for those who have heard it anyway, is like I said, very overproduced, which despite my enjoyment of the project, I agree 100%. But like specifically for this track, do we really need Star Wars laser sound effects? Is that adding anything of note to this track, Dr. Dre? Now, there's a lot going on this song. Like I said, you got the Star Wars gun sound effects, and then they also added this flute in, which honestly I really like. I think it makes the track even more uplifting, and it really helps Kanye's verse flow even better than it does on the original. Then the instrumental cuts out. You heard Kanye say, "That's on God." And then you get this like piano outro with choir vocals, with the choir singing about basically theme of this song. We got everything we need, man. Don't be greedy. Be thankful for what you got, because God has blessed us. Next track is another one that was not on the original version of Jesus is King. That track being Ashes, also known as Up From the Ashes. Like I said, it's another track that was left off of Jesus is King in 2019, despite being made in that era. This track would officially be released, though, in 2021, being put on the Donda Deluxe. That was not the Dre version, though. Dre's version of the track is very groovy. There's new drums and everything in here, and you even got, like, twinkling notes from what sounds like a fucking xylophone. Vocals from the Sunday Service Choir, too, were just beautiful. Like, heavenly. Then you get this really nice outro with the instrumental winding down and then some vocals from Nikki Greer. This is another song where I just prefer the original. The Dre remix versions, like, they just throw so much at the listener to the point where you're not even listening to the lyrics and understanding the concept of the song. But again, another fun remix, especially when you're listening to this project all the way through. It's a vibe. Indeed. Next track is not a vibe. Can't lie. Another rough one, in my opinion, on this project, and that is the Dr. Dre version of God Is. You got this soft piano intro, the Sunday Service Choir vocals, and then the beat drops, and it's just like, oh boy. The thing about this track is it literally, like, Kanye's vocals sound like they were ripped using the Stem Player website. Not the Stem Player itself, like, you have the stems of the tracks and everything, and you could isolate the vocals. Like, if y'all own the Stem Player and fucked around with it, you know what I'm talking about. The beat here that Dre added just doesn't go with Kanye's flow. It's like, it sounds offbeat. And then you get these horns coming in, some organ keys, and that, you know, makes it sound a little bit better, but it's like polishing a turd. The outro's nice, though. You know, you got synths and vocal harmonizing that kind of saves it, you know, a little bit. But then we get into our final track, the 10th song, closing out Jesus is King Part 2, and that track is Use This Gospel, featuring Eminem. I am a huge fan of the instrumental remake on this track. It sounds outstanding. Honestly sounds like a hype-ass walkout song for like a movie in 2010. That one Kevin James movie where he's fucking like boxing for some reason, or he's in the MMA cage shit. I just feel like this would be his fucking walkout song for some reason. Like I said earlier in this video, this track was actually released, and it's the exact version that was released on the DJ Khaled album. God, dude. That is the outro for this project. But like I said, I actually really like the instrumental remake Dre did for this track. You know, on the original Use This Gospel, the car alarm can get a little annoying sometimes. The beat sounds really powerful and it's awesome, and I dig Kanye's lyrics and everything. And then Eminem starts rapping. He just does that same annoying flow where it sounds like he's gonna go somewhere with it, but he never does. He ruined that one, the Bang remix Griselda did a few years back. But I'm not gonna sit here and be a fucking hater, we're gonna move on. Ye comes in with the chorus once again before a very drum-heavy outro hits. Then you got Sly Piper coming in with this final statement of the album. The final thing you hear is blessings from the altar got me feeling like I'm walking on water. So, Jesus is King 2. Is it overproduced to absolute shit? Yeah. Does Dre's contributions add anything to the original Jesus King that the public absolutely needs to hear this instant? No. But this album, it's a really fun listen, honestly, especially for hardcore fans of Ye who are familiar with the original record. While this Part 2 project didn't exactly fix issues on the original Jesus is King like fans had hoped it would, it's not what a remix is. Dr. Dre took these tracks and he really put his own spin on them. As absurd as some of that spin is, that's another debate. And while the production on this project, it certainly isn't revolutionary, it's not pushing any boundaries, some people have gone as far to say that it sounds pretty outdated. It's, like I said, a really fun listen, and when the time's right, I enjoy putting this thing on. Like Sunday morning, taking a drive, it's great. I think one thing that this project truly does is expose just how bad cuts hurt Jesus is King. For me, the album is enjoyable because of its short length. It's really easy to consume, and you know, like I said, a lot of themes of minimalism both in the length and production. But I don't think it would have hurt to add one or two songs like Up From the Ashes or LA Monster, as are on this Part 2 project. Looking back, the Jesus is King era truly is a strange one for Kanye. While many fans see the project as a low point in his career artistically, there's a unique energy and aura around this point in Ye's career that cannot be disputed. And now, with Jesus is King 2, we have another avenue to try to go back in time and capture that powerful Sunday service spirit.